As we now enter through gate number 27, which is known as the Gate of Nourishing, we're going to find ourselves fully into Taurus season. And Taurus season is really in the second house. It focuses on our resources, stability, and really building that sense of self-worth. So I want to invite you to imagine that you are a little seedling that has emerged from the earth. And when we look out to Mother Earth, we can see that the spring equinox was only a few gate activations prior to this point. And we have not yet quite reached the fullness of the summer solstice, which will be a little bit of a journey from here. So Mother Earth really is giving us reflection in Taurus season, in through the gate number 27 and those to come, of what it really does feel like to be emerging from the darkness and into the light, but also in a sense of newness and having to really establish your root system in order to feel confident to walk your human journey. When we look at the gate of nourishing, and it's also known as the gate of caring, this comes in a multitude of forms, and it comes to meet our physical, our mental, our emotional, and our spiritual needs. And it also applies to the law of life. So the law of life states that there must be a mutually beneficial exchange in order for a relationship to remain healthy. And Mother Earth is a really good example of how ecosystems really do support one another. It also shows us the cycles of life, death, and renewal as the old gives way and the new then is nourished from the old. Well, as humanity, we are learning that when we nourish one another by first nourishing ourselves, then we're all going to thrive in an ecosystem that does support the highest good. So we want to approach this gate by really leaning into that mutually beneficial exchange to be happy. This really is about the balance of giving and receiving. You're going to find gate number 27 down in the sacral center within your human design chart. So you're going to want to check your chart to see if you already have this gate circled. And if you do, this is a very common theme for you throughout your lifetime here on this journey. If you don't have it circled in your chart, then during this current gate activation in this time frame, we are all having an opportunity to experience these properties. What it means to have gate number 27 activated is it's bringing forward a energy, and that sacral center is all about our life force energy. It's the life force energy that is here to sustain the community, the workplace, our families, children in general, and to also have the energy to support ourselves as part of the collective. So it comes with the energy of compassion. And this is a compassion where there is a drive, there is an instinct to want to preserve, protect, and nurture, and really understanding that we can offer those components to the best of our ability when we first fill up our own cup, when you yourself are nourished. And that nourishment really encourages us to look at things such as proper exercise, diet, getting some fresh air, making sure you're supported by other people, having those social connections, and also dealing with the material world. So that includes your finances, having healthy finances, looking at your living arrangements, your environment, and making sure all those things are taken care of that are yours to control. It's also the energy that gives freely, and it freely gives of itself to provide the nourishments of food, shelter, and caring for other individuals. It is the energy to nourish and protect for survival or not. because we always have the free will choice whether or not we are going to support somebody else to help them benefit from that effort. And we also go through areas of depletion within ourselves where sometimes we just feel like we cannot go on. So it's really important to measure your energy reserves to see where you are at. If you have that fire inside to want to nourish, if you feel called to assist other people, if you are taking good care of yourself, or are you coming from a place that is feeling really depleted and needing to nourish yourself? So it does come at the risk of neglecting one's own nourishment if it's not careful. Because you are so aware of the other people's need for nourishing, for caring, it can be very easy to forget oneself. And what comes to mind for me is looking at nurses, teachers, caregivers, anybody that is in the capacity of caring for another, and how we can get lost sometimes in that act of caring, that you forget to acknowledge your own need to feed yourself, to get your rest, to take your breaks. And as a result, you can become very depleted. So it really is here to teach us the balance of caring for others and also caring for ourselves. We are not separate from the ecosystem. We are not separate from the community. And we're not separate from that sense of a family or that work unit. So making sure that you are treating yourself as an equal component to all of those other things that you so naturally put your time and attention towards. This is also part of what is known as the channel of preservation. And when we look at the channel of preservation, this is where we see a connection taking us towards what is known as the splenic center in human design. And again, you're going to want to check your human design chart to see if you already have this channel, this connection. And if you do, again, this is a very powerful energy theme that is part of your overall design. The splenic center in human design is our oldest awareness center. It is our center for health and intuitive awareness, body consciousness, but it's also where we keep our ancient fears. So this is the reaction to the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn tendencies and our deep ancestral patterns. In this energetic flow between the quick impulses from the spleen and driving through that gut instinct of just knowing when something needs nourishment, this is where we see the natural caregiver. It comes with that sense of duty to protect, to preserve a way of life. It's going to go the extra mile for those in needs. It often puts others' needs ahead of their own. And this is where we see the archetype of what we call the mother, the caregiver, the nurturer. It just assumes that role. It just instinctively knows what to do. It instinctively responds. It instinctively can sense within the body when somebody is in need of nourishment and caring. And what's happening through that splenic reaction is coming through gate number 50. That is known as the gate of values. Now, the gate of values also carries a fear of responsibility or duty. And we're going to learn about the shadow essence through the teachings of the gene keys of how to do your own inner alchemy to transcend from that lower vibrating energy into a higher vibrational form. And one of the ways that we can look at that is when you consider the fear of responsibility that's just a natural part of this energetic connection. It's looking back through the ancestral lines, through your own patterns within your family, society, culture, religion, whatever your upbringing is. What we are exposed to in TV and media, right? So what has been fed into your system? Where does your sense of responsibility come from? And what is the programming that says you are responsible for certain things? And really looking at all the areas where you do feel a sense of responsibility and mindfully sitting with yourself, inviting in your higher self, your higher guidance to shine a light on the things that you claim a responsibility for that are truly not yours. And we're going to dive a lot deeper into what some of those shadow components are as we get deeper into the gene keys for Gate 27. So it really is here to help us balance the giving and receiving, not giving from an empty cup, but understanding that when you first nurture yourself, you fill up your cup, then your cup runneth over, right? You have all this extra that then can be shared with those around you. So it's making sure that you are putting on your oxygen mask before putting on somebody else's. And trusting that you're just going to instinctively know through that splenic connection, through that impulse, through wanting to jump into action, you're going to know the situations and people to commit to when you're responding from your inner authority. So if you have this channel, you're either going to be of pure sacral authority, or if you have your solar plex defined, you're going to be of emotional authority. It's going to be one of the two connections. If you have emotional authority, this is colored in on your chart. It's making sure that you're coming from a place of being emotionally neutral before jumping in and helping. You're not jumping in because you are feeling an emotional high, like you can take on the world, you got all this energy, but you are balanced within your own emotions and you just sense that this is correct for you to do. If this center is white on your chart and you have your sacral center defined with this connection, you have to be mindful that you are feeling other people's emotions at 200%. So again, you don't want to be tricked by somebody's emotional pressure to respond to their needs. You want to make sure that you are coming from your sacral authority, from your gut response, from responding to what is being asked of you, and feeling the body's yeses or feeling the body's no's to know what is correct for you. And this is where we see our generators and our manifesting generators coming with the strategy of waiting to respond. Waiting to respond means that you're allowing somebody to ask you, or you're sensing something, but you're not jumping in and taking the initiative. You are waiting for the response of your body, which is the response of your energy resources. Your body speaks its truth. Whereas the mind holds on to a program and it holds on to a story, it goes back to that gate 50, it claims a responsibility, it feels that it has to do something, it has to figure out a solution, whereas the body will know whether that is correct for you or not. And a lot of times, if we're not responding from the truth of that inner authority, of your inner knowing, and your mind tells you to jump in too quickly, you might be robbing that individual of the opportunity to rescue themselves, to gain some new self-esteem and some new awareness. Or you may be robbing another who is in alignment to meet that call. So a lot of times when we're taking on that archetype of the mother, the caregiver, the nurturer, and we identify as, well, that is who I am, then you are not allowing yourself to expand beyond that to see what else is possible. It's like holding on to the archetype of being the child, but the child grows to become the maiden, to become the mother, to become the crone. The little boy graduates to being the young adult, into the man, into the grandfather. So we're always in this state of evolution. And if we hold too tightly onto what we perceive as our identity, then we miss passing that baton, passing the torch to somebody else who is stepping in to learn those aspects of themselves, and also opening up the doorway for you to start nurturing and caring at a deeper level. So really leaning on your inner authority to be the guiding force that tells you when something is correct for you, what people are correct for you, and whether you are to jump into action or not. And that really does take some practice and some wisdom. That splenic response is so quiet. It is so gentle in nature, but the fear component of it, the shadow component of it is powerful. So it's really looking at the program of a sense of responsibility, who the mind believes that belongs to, and coming from a place of really trusting how your body communicates to you. How do you know your yeses? How do you know your nos? How do you know when you're not sure and you need more information? And it's allowing yourself time to pause if you're not getting that strong gut instinct that says, yes, this is mine. If you're not sure, take some deep breaths into your body, check in with that higher wisdom, check in with your emotions, ask where this impulse is coming from, and let your body respond after you've had a couple of breaths to stabilize yourself in order to bring in that clarity. When we look at this from the point of the gene keys, and the gene keys come in to now open up the gate of nourishing. It opens it up and it gives us the alchemy to do our own inner work. In this case, it is moving us through the shadow of selfishness. It is looking at the dilemma of consideration. It's moving us to the gift of altruism. And the highest light aspect in here is the Sudi of selflessness. When we first take a look at the shadow of selfishness and its dilemma of consideration, I'm sure we can all reflect back to being a little child and not wanting to share your toys, not wanting to share, but just to kind of keep everything and hoard it to yourself. Now, when a child is doing that, it's coming from a place of pure innocence. The idea of selfishness is not a bad thing. And you may have a trigger to that word where you've been told you've been selfish. And as a result, you may be giving away too much of yourself because of the negativity attached to the word. We want to really look at the idea of selfishness from the point of view of the inner child inside self not having grown up. So this is where the adult, and the image that I really wanted to have generate, but the system wouldn't allow it to generate because of its controversy, is I wanted to show an image of a king, a queen, the royalty in a castle, thriving under the bounty of food and resources and staff and having all this luxury, while meanwhile outside the peasants, the people are starving. And when we look back through history, we see so many times of that happening. And eventually those people that are starving, they revolt and they overthrow those in power. So that is the essence of selfishness, when we are not allowing ourselves to branch from it's all about me, this is mine, and feeling that need to possess, and sharing it out then with the rest of the collective. So when we operate from a state of just being selfish, it's all about the self, it causes a de-evolution. We go backwards. Whereas if we're coming from a place of being selfless, it helps us to evolve. When you're giving freely, we all rise. When you're taking and hoarding, it shrinks and diminishes the sense of self. So that selfishness from the shadow level, the lack of consideration, ends up cutting people off from the collective. It alienates itself. Other people know that they can't go there. They can't trust that. Stay away. So it really creates that sense of loneliness, which then can feed the narrative in the mind of, well, I have to just take care of myself because nobody else will. So we see from that level how having a lack of consideration, and this may have been a program from the child not receiving consideration or being taught how to nurture itself from loving parents, that then grows into the adult that does not know how to nurture itself and therefore comes from a fear-based response of grabbing a hold of everything that it can because it doesn't know or trust when that's going to come again. So as we're examining that, we're also looking that we're moving away from this sense of individual survival. And we're moving towards a communal survival through learning to care and nourish both ourselves and others. And we see that playing out within the world. We are coming into that larger group mentality. It's coming away from the sense of, I have to do this, to we are in this together, but also putting the emphasis back on the individual for you showing up as the best version of you to then support the rise of the we, of the collective. We can also break this down into two parts. So one of the sides of the shadow of selfishness is very repressive. And this is where we see someone that is self-sacrificing. And sometimes when you're approaching that as, well, I'm doing all this good and I'm giving so much to other people, how can that be a bad thing? Well, when you take a look at the image of the cat, the mother cat who is essentially skin and bone, and the health and the thriving of the kittens, this is an image of the mother being responsible for the babies and having to nourish the babies. But instinctually out in the wild, the mother will feed herself first. And that is an essence of being selfish. But if the mother does not feed herself first, she will be unable to produce milk. She will be unable to hunt and feed the babies. So not only will the mother eventually die and perish, but it's highly likely that the babies will also die and perish as a result. So we look back to the animal kingdom as our true teachers of what it really means to have a healthy balance of giving to others, nurturing and taking care of others, but not to the detriment of being self-sacrificing, not to the detriment of affecting your health, your well-being, your mental, your emotional, your physical state. So this is where we see in this repressive side, someone giving away their personal power. Instead of giving from their heart, they're putting all their energy into just doing whatever needs to be done to take care of other people. So there's no healthy boundaries that are in place. And when we don't have healthy boundaries, it is very easy to give to the wrong people. And what I mean by giving to the wrong people is giving to those that will literally become energy vampires. They will take advantage of somebody's good nature. They will literally milk it for all that it's worth. They will take from you and then some. So this is where we see that archetype now becoming the doormat, allowing people to walk over them. And it comes from a lack of self-respect and self-esteem and really putting the value on one's own self and the importance of the role that you do bring into the family unit, into the relationship, or into the workplace. So over time, it really creates this feeling of resentment and anger, and that goes out into that auric field. So you could have somebody that is just designed to be a caregiver and really wants to look after other people. But because they are so depleted, they have been self-sacrificing. Now this auric field that was once warm and caring and nurturing now is pointing out all sorts of energies that are feeling resentment and anger into the environment. Other people feel that. So if you really have that compassionate heart of wanting to serve and protect others, it is being very mindful that you're not taking away from your personal power. It's not coming from a place of, well, I have to do that, resenting having to do that, compromising the love for that individual because they will feel it. You will feel it. So it actually comes from a place of being afraid of one's own dark nature. And we are all components of shadow and light. So when we talk about our dark nature, that is our own desire to be selfish. So it's considered to be dark because the dark is like the womb. The womb is the feminine. Think of a new moon. A new moon is completely in the dark. It's completely a time of inner reflection. So when you are not afraid to face your impulses, your thoughts of, well, I wish somebody would do that for me. I wish I had that. And you really take that and you examine it and you look at it and you go, you know what? I really do need a self-care day. I really am exhausted and feeling resentful and feeling angry and needing that nourishment for myself. That then moves through those sensations of, well, I'm guilty and I'm ashamed and I can't do that, or people are going to think that I'm selfish. People are going to think that I don't care. I'm going to let somebody else down. And really approaching that from the higher vibrations of love that go, well, what about you? What about you letting yourself down? What about you becoming sick? What about you being responsible for your own self-care? So we really do learn to parent our inner child, and we start to move the energy away from that word of selfishness. That is not all bad. It has a lot of good to it as well. It is humans that define something as this is good and this is bad. It's all just energy. So if you can think of yourself in terms of a battery, well, a self-sacrificing battery has no energy left to turn anything on. It cannot give value to anything. But if it allows itself to recharge and to replenish, well, now it can go and it can turn the light on and it can give some power and it can give some substance and it can be of service. Then it has to step and fill up again. So it's recognizing for yourself, where are you in your own essence? Is your cup full? Is your cup in danger of running out? Is it completely run out? And then to do what is needed for you to nurture yourself to bring that back up to a healthy state of being. So self-sacrificing does more harm than good because you inevitably deplete your own resources, and you gradually wear down your own health. And it is not uncommon, actually, for people to self-sabotage themselves and make themselves sick because of an inner desire to want to be nourished by others. And a lot of times it can be very detrimental from those feelings and then those actions that flow into that and the consequences that arise. So it's really being honest with those impulses, with that darker nature, with that self-saboteur, to catch those feelings before they start and to make sure you're reaching out for those resources, for that support, for the love, for the nurturing, for taking really good care of yourself. The other side of this is the reactive side. And when we're in the reactive side of the shadow essence of selfish, this is all about being self-centered. So it's all about the individual. And this is where we see people giving from their mind rather than from the heart. So the mind says, well, if I give them that, then I'm going to get this back. They're going to have to let me come to that party. They're going to have to be nice to me, right? So it's almost like exchanging a bribe for a favor. It wants something in return. And I love this image because we can see this playing out in the world in our politicians. We can see this playing out in many areas where there's corruptions. There's a lot of people that are exchanging gifts and exchanging bribes and having their hand out because if you pat my back, I'll pat yours. And meanwhile, the children are watching. The children are listening. The children are learning. It is coming to the forefront how corrupt a lot of things are. When we really become honest with ourselves, we have all been in this energy. And that often comes from having an emotional attachment to an outcome. If I come and help you, then you'll get better. You'll do this. You'll thank me. You'll like me. You'll bring me into that fold, right? It comes into so many different forms, and it's really an invitation to not be afraid to look at your own shadows and not be afraid of looking at when you do something. Is there an expectation? Is there a sense of, well, if I go help you, then you're going to come and help me? And we certainly do want to see a balance of, being supportive to others and others being supportive back. But the truth in the higher aspects of that is when you're giving from your heart, people naturally want to give back to you from their heart. That is where you see the sense of loyalty. You see the sense of people just coming around you because they want to be around you, not because they feel they have to, not because they owe you something, not because they feel guilty. It is coming from the purity of the heart. So it's also asking that question of yourself. Does your mind tell you that you have to do something even though you don't want to do something? Are you expecting yourself to show up in a certain way even though you're like, I don't really want to do that? That's not truly how I feel. So we can so easily manipulate our own light. Our shadow within ourselves can become self-centered, self-serving, where you're feeding into those lower vibration energies instead of rising above that and going, you know what? Just because my ancestors did that, just because my family did that, just because my culture does that, my religion does that, doesn't mean that that is right for myself. So knowing that when you are in that shadow, when you're feeding that self-centeredness, you're generating an expectation, you're generating an agenda, you want something from what you're giving. It is putting out into that auric field, our energy field, the vibration of manipulation and it feeds distrust. And what happens is what often very much starts out as coming from a place of generosity. Oh, I'll help you. Let me do this. Let me do that. All of a sudden, when expectations aren't met or the other doesn't feel like they're getting something back, they become very hurtful and very volatile. So it's almost like it does a 360-degree, and all of a sudden, the nice cat that you were petting and it was purring away turns around, bites you, and claws you, and scratches you up. And it becomes very angry when it thinks that they are not getting back what they believe that they should be getting back. We have aspects of that within ourselves. That is the honest awareness. We also have been on the receiving end of that energy as that observer, as that innocence to get a greater understanding of how the energy plays out. And we've also been on the receiving and giving end of being self-sacrificing. So it's really acknowledging for yourself and having the honest conversations of, am I more reactive? Am I more repressive? How does this energy show up for myself? What is the underlying fear story? What is the underlying pattern, the conditioned behavior that's showing up for me? And really getting clarity on that. And the reason we want to get clarity on that is not to beat ourselves up. That would be depleting oneself of nourishing. That would be feeding the shadow. But by being the observer, by really looking at yourself from that honest state, well, now you can call in the gift. And here the gift is of altruism. And that is really coming back to the image of the ecosystem that is thriving. Each one of these individual plants are feeding and supporting one another through the network. The soil is providing nutrients. The light is providing nutrients. Some are thriving in the shade. Some require the full sun. Some are taller than others. Some ward off insects. Some require insects, right? There's so many things going on when you look at any ecosystem on land, in the air, in the earth, on water. There's so many different pockets of that. Well, this also applies to humanity. So when we learn to support one another, and that is what altruism is, it's really branching yourself out. It is caring for others from generosity, and it's also caring for nature. Because as we care for nature, nature cares for us. As we are generous with others, others are generous with ourselves. But it has to come from a natural state of being. It has to come from the purity of the heart without the agenda, so that the auric field keeps that strong vibration of giving, of ebb, of life, of flow, of support. Our auric energy field is the truth of who we are. So the more we understand the shadow, the more we can clear that out and we can purify our energy field. This is also where we see an attunement to the natural cycles of life. So you may notice within yourself that you have more energy during certain seasons. And other seasons you really do need to rest more, just like Mother Earth is resting. And when you really get to know your natural cycles and you honor your ebbs, your flows, you go with Mother Earth, then you are really cultivating a green thumb. And it can literally be a green thumb of showing that you are a great gardener, you have an aptitude for plants. The green thumb is also representative of a green aura, which is a healing vibration. Healing self and healing others. So it's really attuning now to the group mind. So this is communal bonding. And if you've ever had a relationship with somebody and you really don't have to use a lot of words, you just instantly know what is needed. And you just kind of work in harmony and flow with that other individual. And, sometimes you're giving a lot, sometimes you're taking a lot, but everything just kind of balances out in there. That is the beauty of really thriving. It's applying your energy in a way that is beneficial for everybody in the group. And you're also receiving everything back that you need in order to keep giving. So it is a cycle of support, it's a cycle of giving, and it just keeps coming in that beautiful flow. When you're operating from that higher vibrating energy, you know what is worth giving to and whom to give that to. You're not interested in feeding the victim consciousness, which means those individuals that are trying to emotionally manipulate. They are trying to get as much as they can from you so they don't have to do it themselves. You're not feeding into the poor me story. You are applying it to those that truly do need it, and you are supporting the empowerment of individuals to not feed the victim story, but to trust that they have the ability to do what is needed for themselves. This is also where we see the parents stepping away from the child so the child can learn how to do things that are age appropriate and not trying to jump in and doing things for a child that the child needs to learn to do in order to become a healthy, thriving adult. So this gift really does focus on the nurturing and education of children and building that strong foundation. So they say that this is the first 7 years of life. So much of your foundation is built during those first 7 years. So you may have to go back and really parent your own inner child if you didn't receive the nurturing and the education that was required to build a strong foundation of yourself that knows the balance between giving and receiving and how to thrive with others. When we're operating from this gift level, it is giving off such a powerful auric field of trust. And that trust is felt by other people. And this is where we see a lot of caregivers and healers in this higher energy, really then helping other people to open themselves up and receive nurturing. And sometimes they're doing it for the very first time. They finally feel safe enough to trust that they can drop down their guard and they can let somebody pour some love into them, some light into them, some nurturing into them, teach them some skills to learn and grow for themselves, empowering themselves, reminding the importance of building a deep root system into the earth, feeling like you can walk here, that you do belong here, feeding the self-esteem, feeding the self-confidence, and really knowing that we are stronger when we work together. Just like we have to have a balanced diet, we have to consume a variety of fruits and vegetables, we also need to be exposed to many different energy types, many different situations, many different experiences, so that we can evolve and grow. It's not all about being in sunshine and butterflies. It's looking at all the things in the ecosystem and moving as a group to take care of the things that require the highest attention, the top priorities. So we've often been trained in the world right now to have a very lean mindset. The business model is lean, meaning they expect people to do more work for less resources and less pay. Well, guess what? It's not working. And we can see how our systems are falling apart and people are getting burnt out and things are falling through the cracks. And there's this greater divide of separation because of that mentality. When you bring it back into your body, what feels right for you? What is it that you want to preserve out in society, out in your community, from your culture, from your religion, from your family unit? What are the values that you're really holding near and dear to your heart that matter? And what are the values that you are ready to shed away? They no longer apply to this day and age. They are no longer serving what is of the highest good. So it's allowing yourself to evolve by taking really good care of yourself and also giving the space and the encouragement for someone else to evolve in their own time. And that's another reflection of the plant is we love to nurture, but that seed that is you, that is somebody else, we all decide when that seed is going to open up, when we feel safe enough, when it's going to grow and emerge out of the showers and peek up into the light, and when it is going to open and bloom. We cannot force this seed to mature if it's not ready to mature. And that is also the same as the seed within yourself. So the gift of nurturing and the gift of love and the gift of support also requires great patience. And in that 7-year cycle that we talk about, it's also acknowledging, and I want to bring this down for a moment, it's acknowledging that our skin has 7 layers to it. So in the teachings of human design, it says it takes 7 years to go through a transformation. And the reason for that is this is a cellular level transformation. So the work that you're doing as you're acknowledging your shadows and you're cultivating the gifts, you are changing from the inside out. So you are literally shedding away layers of your skin all the time. And every 7 years, we are essentially reborn. What was inside is now a reflection outside. So sometimes when you're doing a lot of this work, you can hit these periods of feeling frustrated, like it's not going anywhere. But it's reminding yourself of how much inner work you are doing. And when the eyes try to look out and say, well, I've lost all these friends and I've lost this and I've lost that, that is the mind that sometimes wants to pull you back into those comfort zones. And when you really stop and you check in with your heart and you do your inner reflection, yes, you may have lost things that were not serving your highest good. It may appear that you are lacking, but if you were to tune inward, what have you gained in the experience? And it's reminding yourself that you can't bring in the new. We learned this in the last gate activation, gate number 3. We cannot bring in the new and plant the seeds of the new if you're holding on to the old resentments, the old expectations. If you have your energy going into too many places, you cannot nourish any new growth if there's no room to allow that to cultivate. So trusting that whatever phase you are going through, if you are a nurturer, a caregiver, an empath, a sensitive, it is so important to do the work on you first. And that is the principles of more than existing. More than existing means that you are no longer suffering. You are stepping into your strong foundation. You know who you are. You're filling yourself up with self-worth, self-confidence, self-esteem. You are traveling the virtuous path, which means you're traveling the path of light and doing your own work in order to rise yourself up. When we rise, others rise, right? So when one person rises, when one person does the work, we all benefit. And each and every one of us came into this world with a unique thumbprint. Each and every one of us has a unique, authentic gift that is yours to bring, to blossom and bloom into humanity. And that comes when you trust in yourself and you do the inner work required to remove all those layers of the shadow and the conditioning that override in the mind what your true potential really is. So this is a powerful gate of nurturing for all of us. We have opportunities throughout the year to activate all 64 of those gates as the mandala wheel is turning. So you may have gate 27 already in your chart. You may be really feeling this as a component of your design. You may be really sitting in the activation of this and some self-awareness of feeling the shadow essence and feeling the gift aspects as a means to grow and evolve yourself. It's also a reminder that we carry all 64 within our cellular DNA. So whether our chart has something or doesn't have something, we are part of the whole. We are all in this earth together. We're all floating in this vast universe together. We are all affected by all things. The universe is inside of you. So I send you all much love, and I look forward to continuing the journey through Taurus season with you. Namaste. Take care.